Hi and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptid's Roost. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. The Shift, Part 1. This awesome series is written by getyaisha. Chapter 1. 27 minutes. On a desolate stretch of highway, somewhere between the dirt road and the stars, I find myself hitchhiking. I wish I could say I'm some sort of badass on the run from the law, but the truth is, I'm not. The reality of it is, I'm just some idiot who made a bad decision and now I'm paying for it. Maybe I should explain. Not too long ago, I had a normal life. I was the overnight attendant at the Stop and Shop. It's your run-of-the-mill corner store / gas station combo, open 24 hours with trash food and overpriced beers. Aside from the random rude customers and the occasional homeless person, not much happened around there. Till I met Teddy. I want to say it was a Thursday night, but I could be remembering it wrong. Things are still kind of hazy. In any case, my girlfriend, Shelby, stopped by my job on her way home. The minute she stepped through the door, I could tell she was tired. Still, she always managed to smile. Grabbing a beer from the open-top cooler, she shook the ice off it and stepped up to the register. In her other hand, she'd been carrying a take-out bag that she sat on the counter. "That's for you. This is for me." Pausing for a moment, she looked at my name tag and shook her head. "When are you going to get that fixed? Your name isn't Rufus." Laughing, I told her no one ever reads the name tag. Then she gave me a kiss and headed out. The night rolled on, fairly normal. A few stragglers here and there, but for the most part, it was quiet. I'd just finished restocking the beer when the chimes above the door sounded. When I turned to get a look, I saw a short, older guy with long grey hair that was pulled back into a ponytail. He stayed standing in the doorway, causing the chimes to continuously sound off till I was back behind the counter. Raising an eyebrow and looking me over, he took a deep breath, then started talking as he stepped inside.
"Good evening,"
he announced in a voice that seemed a little too proper for his appearance. The guy was wearing cargo shorts, flip-flops and a stained white t-shirt with "Who Farted" written in big brown letters on it. Stepping up to the counter, he glanced at my name tag, then at me, and narrowed his eyes.
"Okay, Rufus is it? My name is Theodore Bell, but you may call me Teddy."
He paused to pull a wad of cash from his pocket and placed it on the counter.
"That, my good man, is $5,000 if you accept my proposal. There will be another 5,000 when our transaction is complete."
Taking a step back, glancing between the money and Teddy, I got nervous. "What do you want?" Seeing the change in my demeanour, Teddy showed me his hands and stepped back.
"Relax. My offer doesn't require anything other than your storeroom. I need 27 minutes, and for that you will receive $10,000. It's that simple."
27 minutes? I asked, still a little apprehensive. Seeing I wasn't buying in just yet, Teddy smiled.
from 3:33 a.m. till 4. All you have to do is make sure no one comes in that storeroom. There may be some cleanup involved, but for $10,000, I assume you can handle it. If all goes well, I'll be back. So, Rufus, do we have an agreement?
Of course, I took the money. It was too good to pass up. At exactly 3:33, I locked Teddy in the storeroom. All he had with him was a brown paper bag. Once the door was locked, I went on with my night, as usual. At 3:45, there were 2 loud bangs, followed by a low rumbling that lasted 6 minutes. And when it stopped, the lights flickered. At exactly 4 a.m, I unlocked the door and Teddy stepped out with a smile.
As agreed, sir.
He paused as he stepped inside.
Good evening,
he announced in a voice that seemed a little too proper for his appearance. The guy was wearing cargo shorts, flip-flops and a stained white t-shirt with "Who farted?" written in big brown letters. Look inside just to be sure everything was okay. Nothing looked out of place. The only thing he'd left behind was the crumpled up paper bag. When I got home, I told Shelby all about it. She didn't believe me till I threw the money on the bed.
Holy shit! Is that real?
She exclaimed, rubbing her eyes. Thumbing through a stack of bills, she shook her head.
Jesus, Jimmy, are you sure this is safe? Who is this guy? How do you know this isn't drug money?
The truth is, the money could have come fresh off a dead body and I would have taken it. Even if she'd made a good point, I hadn't done anything wrong, and as far as I could tell, no one got hurt. We talked for a while, then made plans to pay off all our outstanding bills. By the time I went back to work, I was happier than I'd been in a while. The night was slow, but I didn't care. Around midnight, I was watching a movie on my phone when the chimes above the door sounded. Setting my phone down, I glanced to see the customer, but there was no one there. "Hello?" I called out, thinking maybe whoever it was had gotten by me while I wasn't paying attention. There was no response. Getting up from my seat and checking to be sure, I scratched my head. I knew those chimes sounded. There was no way I'd imagined it. I went as far as checking the security footage, and to my surprise, the doors never opened. It took a while to put it out of my head and get back to what I was doing. Another hour crept by, and as usual, I stepped outside to take a smoke break. The smell of rain on the night air made me smile. Something about it always put me at ease. Lighting my cigarette and taking a long drag, I stood there watching the first drops start to fall. For whatever reason, I glanced back over my shoulder and caught a glimpse of someone moving through the store. I nearly jumped out of my skin. I didn't see exactly who it was, but I knew I'd seen someone going into the restroom. Thumping out my cigarette, I hurried back inside. Doing my best not to sound nervous, I called out, "You ain't supposed to be in here, dude. Don't make me come in there." I stood there for a second, but all I could hear was the buzzing of the overhead lights and the hum of the coolers. Thinking maybe whoever it was couldn't hear me, I marched over and banged on the door. "I promise If you're in there rubbing one out, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. Still, no response. Taking a deep breath and shoving the door open, I was surprised to find it was empty. I typically don't scare easy, but something about this was giving me the willies. Nothing else happened that night, and by the end of my shift, I couldn't wait to get out of there. When I got home, Shelby had gone to work, but she left a note taped to a bottle of Johnny Walker and a jar of fresh bud from the dispensary. The note read, "Hey babe, I'll be by after work. Have a great day off. P.S. Save me some." Laughing to myself, I hit the shower. Once I was settled in, I had a drink and smoked a little, then nodded off, watching a movie. I woke up to Shelby kissing me on the cheek. I'll spare the details and say we had a great night. In any case, by the time I went back to work, I'd forgotten all about the weirdness and was having a normal shift. It was a little busier than usual. Customers rolled in steady till 11. Then Art showed up. Art's my best friend. We've known each other since elementary school. He's one of those people that seem to float through life. No matter how rough things get, somehow he always lands on his feet. Stepping through the door, he stopped, closed his eyes and tilted his head back while taking a dramatic breath. Doing his best Michael Buffer impression, he announced, "Let's get ready to rumble!" Then strolled over to the counter. "Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy, tonight's the night. Are you ready?" The last time he was this excited about something, we wound up hiding on the roof because we thought flesh-eating Smurfs were after us. Shaking my head and laughing, I grabbed a pack of smokes from the display. "Whatever it is, I'm out. I almost got fired last time." Still smiling, Art pulled 2 small baggies of blue powder from his pocket and handed me one. Looking at them, I was confused. For one, I'd never seen anything like it. Secondly, we smoked a little weed from time to time and occasionally shrooms. But this was something altogether different. "What is it? And who'd you get it from?" I asked, still looking at the baggies. "Lonnie, as for what it is, I don't actually know. But neither did he. We did some, and the shit's amazing. All you do is put a little on your tongue, and trust me, you're gonna love it," Art replied with his usual smirk. Opening one of the bags, he licked his finger, then dabbed it in, then stuck his finger in his mouth. He closed his eyes, then shivered, and shook his head. "Trust me, bro, it's worth it." I should have followed my first mind, but I didn't, and like a dumbass, I took a hit. He was right. It started with a slight tingle that started at the base of my skull, then radiated up, filling me with a warm, fuzzy feeling. In a matter of minutes, a euphoric haze drifted over me, and everything became intensely vivid. It was a smooth, mellow high that felt like it would last forever. We laughed and talked for what felt like hours till the chimes above the door sounded. Art glanced over before I did, and the look on his face went from cheerful to confused, then horrified. Clumsily getting up from his seat, he backed up, bumping the counter. When I turned to get a look for myself, my heart dropped into the pit of my stomach. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. It looked almost human. It was a short and thin but hunched over with an oversized head. I couldn't move. Between the shock and the drugs, I was locked in. The creature's bulging yellow eyes shifted between Art and I. Then it smiled. Its mouth was filled with horse-like teeth that were stained and rotted. Looking at it made my stomach hurt. Glancing around the store, it sniffed the air and made a series of grunting noises. Now drooling, it dropped down, walking on all fours, slowly moving towards us. I could hear Art muttering, "This isn't real," over and over. Something about that snapped me out of it. Keeping my eyes locked on the creature, I slowly moved to grab the aluminium baseball bat from under the counter. In a sing-song hiss, the creature called out, "Here I come," before scurrying in our direction. Art literally screamed like a little girl and dove over the counter, landing hard on the floor a few feet away from me. Now giggling, the creature sprinted around, crashing into the shelves, eating whatever it wanted, while Art and I hid, praying it would go away. After a few chaotic moments, the store fell silent. We sat there listening to the wet slapping of its hands and feet moving across the tile floor. Then it stopped and spoke again. "I smell your stinky skin. You know hide from Bagel." Its voice trailed off as he moved away from us. Then we heard the sound of the light switch being flicked, and we were plunged into darkness. "Fuck this," Art blurted out, snatching the bat from my hand and standing up. As soon as he was fully upright, a can of chili zipped through the air and hit him in the face. His head snapped back and his body went stiff as he fell, landing on the floor. He was out cold and bleeding from a nice-sized gash in his forehead. Rolling him onto his side, I tried waking him, but was cut off by the sound of Bago sniggling. Slowly glancing up from Art, I see his grotesque fingers gripping the edge of the counter as it pulled itself up. All I could see were eyes staring back at me. "Stinky man hurt. Good. I eat now," it hissed. I snapped. Grabbing the bat, I stood up and immediately clubbed that thing over the head. Instead of the satisfying smack of the bat across its skull, it sank in as if its head was made of clay. Letting out a shrill squeal, its eyes crossed, focused on the bat. Then it snatched away, frantically trying to dislodge it. After a few seconds of trying, he stood up, tugging at it one last time, then stopped. "Me hate you," it hissed, before scurrying out of the store. I'm not sure how long I stood there before I finally was able to move. When I turned the lights back on, I was shocked. There was no mess. Everything was clean and normal. There were no signs that anything happened. Well, almost. Art had a huge purple knot on his head and needed a few bandages. When we came to, he had no memory of Bago or how he got hurt. I told him exactly what happened, but he didn't believe me. I went as far as trying to replay the security footage, but there was no sign of him. What was there was confusing as hell. The footage showed us taking the powder, then goofing around for a while. At some point, we were running around the store. That's when Art dove over the counter. I was standing by the canned goods. In the footage, I grabbed a can of chili, then did a 3-step drop and launched it directly at Art. Needless to say, we were done for the night. When my shift ended, Art dropped me off at home, and I spent the morning trying to forget any of that happened. Ultimately, I chalked it up to the drugs and tried to get some rest. The next night, I clocked in as usual. My plan was to take it easy and coast. I wasn't going to get high or chug beers in the cooler. Hell, I wasn't even planning on taking a smoke break. The hours ticked by, and for the most part, it was a good night. The usual cast of locals drifted through. Then around 10, Officer Calloway stopped in to grab some snacks for the night. Regina Calloway, or Reggie as we used to call her, grew up with us. I swear if I wasn't with Shelby, I'd be pushing up on her every chance I had. Even in uniform, the woman was absolutely stunning. Stepping through the doors, she gave me a stern look, then smiled and shook her head.
Hey Jimmy, another night on the block I see. How's everything going?
We made small talk while she gathered a few things. Then just as she stepped to the counter, Art strolled in. Seeing her standing there, he gave her a big smile.
Reggie!
He exclaimed, holding his arms out for a hug.
Get over here and give an old pal a hug.
Rolling her eyes at him, she sat her things on a counter for me to bag up before responding.
It's Regina, and keep your hands to yourself.
She paused and sniffed the air, then narrowed her eyes at him.
Is that weed I smell?
Quickly putting his arms down, Art shrugged.
Weed? What? Nah, not me. I don't do things like that. Whatever, Artie,
Calloway replied before taking her things and leaving. Shaking his head, Art watched her walk to her patrol car. Turning his attention back to me, he smirked.
Ready for round 2?
Grabbing a pack of cigarettes from the display, I shook my head. No, what's wrong with you? That hit in the head must have given you brain damage. I'm not doing that shit again.
Pussy,
he chuckled while patting his pockets until he found the baggies. We went back and forth over the issue till it was time for my first break. I don't know why I finally gave in, but I did. And after the final rush of the night, we both took a hit. The high was just as strong as the first time, but nothing happened. A little after 1, Shelby had her friend Pam bring her by to drop off some food. When she stepped through the doors and saw Art, she paused. Shifting her eyes between the two of us, she shook her head.
I should have known.
Looking directly at me, squinting playfully, she joked.
When he gets you fired, I don't want to hear about it.
Hurrying over, handing me the bag and giving me a kiss, Shelby turned to leave, but Art was already on his way to the car.
Shit,
she muttered as he passed through the door. All I could do was laugh. He'd been trying to talk to Pam for weeks, and this was his chance. Glancing back at me, she gave me a dirty look, then went outside. A few minutes later, Art strolled back with a smirk on his face, claiming Pam was going to come back and hang out. I honestly thought he was lying, but exactly 1 hour later, she showed up with a bottle of Jim Beam. Art went to meet her out front, then they went around back and came inside through the service entrance. My boss knows what we do. He just asks that we keep it off the cameras for insurance reasons. I waited for Mr. Jim to stop by before I locked up. He's one of the homeless guys that lives in the area. I let him have the hot dogs and taquitos that we have left over. Once he'd gotten everything, I let him grab a beer off the ice and sent him on his way. By the time I'd locked up and joined the others, they were a few shots in and rolling a joint. We laughed and joked around for a while before Pam and Art started kissing. That was my cue to go back to work. I hadn't been back at the counter long before Mr. Jim tapped on the window and pointed to the side of the building. More than a little buzzed, I shrugged, not fully understanding what he was trying to say. I guess he got the point because he came in.
There's some guy out here eyeballing the store. You might need to check on that.
Getting up from my seat to check it out, I reached to grab the bat and realised it wasn't there. An instant flashback of Bago trying to pull the bat out of his head made me wince. Shaking it off, I stepped outside, went to the side of the building and was surprised to see Teddy standing there. He was wearing pyjama pants, cowboy boots and what looked like a sleeveless raincoat. From what I could tell, he was just standing there staring at the building. I quickly realised he hadn't noticed me, so I spoke up. "Teddy, what are you doing out here?" I guess I must have caught him off guard, because he abruptly turned to face me.
Oh, hello, my good man. Rufus, isn't it? Yes, that's it, Rufus. I was in the area and thought I'd stop by to take a few notes.
Trying to ignore the fact he was acting stranger than usual, I shook my head. "Hey, since you're here, do you know what a Bago is?" As soon as he heard that name, Teddy shot me a disgusted look and sighed.
I assure you, he's quite harmless as long as he doesn't know your name.
I couldn't tell which bothered me more, his irritated tone or the fact he knew about Bago and hadn't bothered to warn me. As long as he doesn't know my name? What does that mean? What happens if he learns it? Teddy scoffed at the question, then dug in his pocket, retrieving an old-fashioned corncob pipe. Pausing for a moment to look at me, he smirked, then lit up using matches. After a few dramatic puffs to be sure it was smoking, he blew out a healthy cloud.
Well, let's say it would be in your best interest not to let that happen.
Stopping to narrow his eyes at me, he tilted his head as if he were just realising something.
How may I ask, were you able to see Bago? Were drugs involved?
Maybe, I replied, trying not to be too obvious. Why? What does that have to do with anything? Laughing to himself, Teddy took a few quick puffs and shook his head.
Oh, everything. But it's too late now that you've seen him. He won't stop till he consumes you. My advice, Rufus, keep your real name to yourself. Don't let anyone around you say it out loud. Ever. If he hears it, you're dead. Have a great night.
With that, he turned and walked towards a primer grey van I hadn't noticed till that moment. Hey, you can't just say shit like that and walk away. What am I supposed to do? Without turning back, he waved a dismissive hand and climbed into the van. Slamming the door, he responded,
Get back to work.
then cranked the engine and drove away. Walking back to the front of the store, I noticed Pam's car wasn't in the parking lot. Figuring she'd left, I stepped back inside and took my seat behind the counter. After a few minutes, Art came strolling out to the storeroom, straightening his clothes. I chuckled and shook my head as he gave me the nod and came over.
Bro, she's a freak. You wouldn't believe the shit she's into.
Glancing out the window, I paused. Wait, she's still in the storeroom? He nodded and shrugged like I'd asked a dumb question.
Of course she is. I just came to grab some water. Why? What's wrong?
Pointing to the parking lot, I started chuckling. Well, I'm pretty sure someone stole her car. Art's jaw dropped when he looked for himself, and the only car in the lot was his Honda.
Oh, that's messed up. Give me about 30 minutes before you tell her.
Pam's voice cut through our conversation.
Tell her what?
She asked from the doorway of the storeroom. We both slowly turned around to see her standing there, glaring at us. Your car's gone. I think somebody stole it, I managed to say before she asked again. This time she sounded angry.
Tell her what?
She snarled, taking a step forward, shifting her attention between the two of us. Holding out his hands, attempting to calm her down, Art spoke up.
Chill. Calm down. It's just a...
Before he could finish talking, she yelled the question again.
Tell her what?
She tore out a handful of her own hair and stuffed it in her mouth. No questions asked. Art and I bolted for the door. We were across the lot and at his car in seconds. Unlock it! I barked out, seeing Art standing there, patting his pockets. He didn't have to say it. I already knew what that look on his face meant. Glancing over his shoulder, I froze. Pam was standing there in the doorway with the keys in her hand, dangling them as if to taunt us, before she tossed them in her mouth and swallowed. Letting out a scream, she charged towards us, literally stripping out of her skin as her body contorted, becoming Bago with each step. Everything was happening so fast, neither of us had time to think. Seeing that transformation short-circuited my brain. All I could do was stand there. From what I could tell, Art was just as blown away as I was. He staggered back and fell as a blood-covered Bago launched himself into the air, preparing to attack. I didn't blink or avert my eyes in any way, but somehow between that thing jumping and coming down, it vanished. It happened so fast that Art was still screaming and shielding his face, not realising there was nothing there. After an odd moment of silence, he sat up, looking around.
What just happened?
He muttered, staring at the shredded chunks of meat and hair splattered across the parking lot. I couldn't come up with the words to describe what I'd seen. All I could do was shrug my shoulders and focus on the trail of gore leading back to the store. Are you seeing that, or is it just me? Pointing out the mess, I glanced over at Art, still sitting on the ground. Nodding his head and getting up, he turned to look at me.
What the actual...
was all he managed to say before Bago came running. He was moving so fast I barely caught a glimpse of his frame before impact. In one continuous motion, it slammed into Art, threw him over his shoulder and carried him away screaming. As they vanished into the dark, the last thing I heard was my best friend's voice.
Jimmy! Help me!
And I hope you enjoy the Blooper Reel. Till I met Freddy. Once the door was locked, I went on with my The truth is, the money could have come fresh off a dead body, and I wouldn't... Fuck's sake. The truth is, the money could have come off... In any case, by the time I went to work... Still smiling, Art pulled 2 small baggies of blue... Keeping my eyes locked on the creature, I slowly moved to grab the aluminium... As soon as he heard the name, Teddy's... With that, he turned and walked. We were across the lot and at his house in set. Hey family, don't forget to punch the like button and smack the ass of the subscription button as well. And remember to chokehold that notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. And by subscribing, you'll be the first to see all of our new spooky creepypasta stories. A very big thank you to getyaisha for allowing me to narrate this awesome series. Make sure to check out their Reddit profile for more brilliant stories. And why not hashtag Cryptids Roost in your comments. A quick thank you to all my Cryptids Roost community family too. We are now well on our journey to 1,000 subscribers. If you would like to throw me $1 or $3, I'd be very much appreciative. I do have PayPal, paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Alternatively, I have an account at buymeacoffee.com. You don't even need to register on either site to donate. I have a subreddit if you have a story you've written that you would like me to narrate for you. You can also follow us. All my socials are contained within the Linktree link below. And don't forget to check out the end screen, see above. That will also list some more videos in my back catalogue. All the links are below. Take care everyone, and I hope you all have a wonderful and peaceful night. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.